Hey everybody, Sinister Shore here, and today, and happy Easter, we're reviewing Tampa-Alissa Nutting. This is a pretty infamous book online right now, and I can see why. It's actually a really good book and well done, and what the book is about a teacher being super into her 14-year-old student, but to the point where she wants to make sure that this kid looks young. So, I think this is an important book in some regards, and I like it beyond the whole gross out factor, like oh my god, how transgressive. There's a lot to say here. Here's going to be like the thesis for this video. I talked about it in the new Juche video as well, where I feel like we have kind of forgotten how to argue why messing with underage kids is bad. And of course, disclaimers for all you idiots, it is bad. I'm not saying like, oh, let's lower the age of consent historically, blah, blah, blah. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just saying like, why is it bad? We kind of forgot in some ways. And this book kind of hits on that, and it kind of misses the mark as well. But just keep that in mind. Let's get into it. So this book is interesting because it is about a teacher who is married to a cop, hates her husband, just absolutely hates her husband, doesn't want anything to do with him, hates the pup out at work, but she gets super turned on by her students. And she works kind of like within the early high school, like 14-year-old range, when people are just hitting puberty or kind of into puberty already. And she uses her class to find a student so she can sleep with. She's very particular about which boy she wants to sleep with. So her criteria is somebody who is very young looking. Like it doesn't look like puberty's hit them, but obviously they have to have puberty to do the acts. They have to not be too bold. Like they can't be like a robust teenager because like, well, if they're too out there, they're gonna tell everybody. And so it just has to be somebody innocent and kind of shy and who has very boyish features. Otherwise, it won't work. And she found that in a young boy, and she proceeds to seduce him by staying with him after class, showing her cleavage, making and buying him a second cell phone, and they proceed to do the act multiple times throughout the book. Now, a quick thing, there's an interesting characterization within the book. It almost seems like there's two sets of characters, and I like it, but it is a weird thing. So, the main character, whose name I always forget in these videos, and the young boy, they're written very, very realistically and very well done. You get a really great sense of the character. The teacher is like this beautiful woman, had a lot of opportunities in life, very successful in a quote-unquote great marriage, but she hates it. She just so focused on sex that it just kind of takes over her whole mind. And the young boy you can just tell, is a really innocent guy who, unlike his other peers, hasn't really thought much of sex maybe, and just trying to get through school and be a good student. And they just feel grounded in realism. However, her wife and one of the supporting teachers, they feel like they're straight out of a Matt Stokey novel. Like I read Cows last year, and the other professor, she sounds like the Hagbeast from, if you read that book, you know what I mean. She's overweight, she's ugly, I think she farts during the novel. She's just a terrible person to a student. The school tries to kick her out, but like the main character is like, well, if she gets fired, I get her classroom. And her classroom's not in the back of the school, so it's going to be much tougher for me to do stuff for the students, which is crazy. And she's just always like in her face, just like always like doesn't know when she's not wanted, even though she loves the main character, and the main character's lying to her. And it's just like, man, this is a weird person. And then the husband is a cop who is really frustrated because he barely gets any sex from his wife. They're barely seeing each other. She encourages him to like take extra hours and longer shifts so that they don't see each other for most of the novel. And he's just really frustrated by that. It's like, well, babe, we gotta like, do this stuff and everything. And even her interactions with him is like Matt Stokey, where it's, she takes like Vicodin so she won't feel the sex, so she'll just be clunked out doing it. And it's like, I'm just pretty much a meat puppet to him. And he comes from a rich family, so they're really like into like image and whatnot, which comes later into the novel as well. So it's a kind of a weird contrast between these two sets of characters. And it's not that I'm against it. It's not that there's weird people in real life, but that's where the book misses the mark a little bit, where it's like, okay, are you just trying to go for like a disgusting, like typical transgressive novel, like kind of sophomorish, or are you trying to go for a very realistic depiction of this? And these two elements, while I don't dislike, you have to admit they do just kind of miss each other. It's just strange. Like I said, it feels like two distinct sets of characters from like different novels. Now, some of the stuff I think that does great with the realism in the book is how she tries to manipulate him. Typical things making him feel like he's special. Whenever he starts feeling insecure about something, she has sex with him to reaffirm their love for each other. She tries to control the relation, like, you can't text me at these times, you can't do these things, like, here's your cell phone, but never do anything like that. Like, oh, can I have a picture of you naked? It's like, no, absolutely not. Like, oh, maybe we can love and we can be together soon and everything. And it's like, whoa. And in her mind's like, well, dude, once he gets like a few years older, she's done with him. So she does groom this boy in order to be, like her mistress or her sex slave, or I don't know the proper term in this situation. And just to jump to the end of the novel, so we can talk about the main point, is that his dad dies from a heart attack when he discovers them, and she's like, don't save him. Because in her mind, it's like, well, I'm going to be found out. And then like he feels really guilty about that, and she's like, it's not your fault, it's not our fault, he died of natural causes, even though they could have potentially saved him. He moves away, she finds another boy, and then at the end of it, the first boy finds them sleeping together eventually, and he accidentally kills the second boy by pushing him over, and he hits his head and he dies. Now, this is where a bit of the novel fails for me. Because how is that different from a potentially normal toxic relationship? Here's what I mean by that. Two things. One, there are people out there who get into relationships with no anticipation in the future, but like love bombing, like, oh, I love you, blah, 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 and makes the other person love them, knowing they're not going to reciprocate for anything long term. That's normal in like just normal basic relationships. Two, when he accidentally killed the young boy, here's the thing, that's not predicated to children. There was a story, and this is a true story, in another country, where a guy called, he's like, hey, I just shot this guy. This guy tried to rob my house. It turns out the situation was, husband A found out that his wife A was cheating with man B. And he saw the cell phone and he texted him like, hey, come over. So husband A texts with wife B's phone to husband A messaged with wife A's phone to person B, come over. He comes over and then he shoots him. And he said like, oh, it was a burglary. It wasn't a burglary. He found out about the affair and he killed him. And there are situations like that. So, oh my God. So there are situations like that where in normal relationships, people kill other people out of jealousy. So it's maybe not the most common thing in the world necessarily, but I guess my point is that by having the two big consequences be those two things, it doesn't really touch on why underage relationships are bad. I think what I'd rather have the author do, even though it's a bit more difficult and it would definitely have to be a longer novel, is based off what the original book is called, based off of Tampa. I think this is the correct case, which is based off a real teacher sleeping with a student. And what happened is that the student got the teacher pregnant, and she went to jail, and she came back, and he was still in love with her, and they were still together, I think till this day. And there's an interview where you can watch of him, and like the woman is doing all the talking, the guy is out of it, like he's just kind of not there. It's a really strange dynamic. And again, that's not to say that can't happen in normal relationships, but the susceptibility of a young boy at sixth grade, if a person in sixth grade gets somebody pregnant, there's like no chance for them. Like it's so much easier for the teacher to groom them and bring them up to that level and have them control for the rest of their life. And so while that book kind of touches on it, was like, well, I'm gonna just be tired of him. Instead of the dad dying and him moving away, I'd rather have it like they go through the act of what it's like, okay, I'm tired of this boy, I have to cut him off. I think that would have showed how much damaging these relationships can be, rather than the extenuating circumstances of his dad dying, or showing like what this looks like in the long term if he decides to keep him around, and what does she preclude him from all these events in the future. That would have been a lot more disturbing, and I think would really touch on the graphic nature of these relationships a lot more than just he accidentally kills the second lover. Now, I might sound very critical of this book, but it is a good book. I really did enjoy it. It portrays the portrayals of like how she gets turned on by these young men. She really goes to town on it, and she does a great job of showing why pedophilia is dangerous, because it's like, oh God, yeah, this is a scary thing, because she just has no chance. It's like there's no chance. She's just so turned on by these young men, and it's just something so ingrained with her. It's almost like it's not a choice for her. So it's not just like, I have an attraction to young men. It's a certain amount of fixation there, where she just can't stop thinking about it, too well it overrides her ability to have sex with her husband. And it does a great job in showing the danger of pedophilia there. I just wish it would have, at the end of the relationship, it would have focused more on like what is specific to these underage relationships that are dangerous. But yeah, that's my review of Tampa. I definitely recommend it. It's a pretty great book. Check it out. She has another book that got an HBO series, but let me know if you read it, and happy Easter.